Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
The lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Mum, you score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hay celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livy, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club. Just the two of us this week, the original two.
The best two. Well, some would claim the worst two, but
Yeah.
we are definitely claiming the best two.
Well, we started
Yeah,
this.
founder members of Talk Livy.
Exactly. So
Callum comes in officially for 1 week. Callum with 2 L's, by the way. Officially comes in for 1 week and then he just disappears off the face of the earth.
we even added him to the group chat, and God, he's gone Bertie Big Bollocks,
Yeah.
hasn't he already?
Not good enough.
There's one podcast.
And then Callum Brown, that's 2 weeks in a row he's missed. 3 out of, what's that, 3 out of 5? 3 out of
know.
6 episodes now he's missed.
He's honestly, it's gone to his head.
Shocking.
He's really
Right.
now
Gets-
speaking to Liam Fox.
Yeah.
He's going to be like, oh,
Gets a
it's-
gig for the club and we're just forgotten about. We ask if we can get details for Liam Fox so we can maybe have a wee interview. Well, I'm doing an interview for Livy TV.
Aye,
Right,
aye.
okay, right, aye. Never mind, eh? The best two, the original two.
Exactly. So on this week's episode, we're going to look back at the Ross County game, and after that, we'll also have a look at the international break with Scotland playing both Israel and the Czech Republic.
On Saturday, we returned to home comforts, desperate for our first win of the season and a result to kickstart our campaign. We welcomed Highlanders Ross County to West Lothian, following their own very good start to the season, which saw them start the day in 3rd place. An excellent result for us, great to be talking about a win.
Yeah, it's much needed. We spoke about it last week with Waugh, how important this game was to get us off and running, and the big point I was making, it gives you a bit of a buzz going into the international break after getting a win. You don't want to go into that still looking for your first 3 points of the season. So yeah, it was a solid performance. I wouldn't say it's our most breathtaking display of the season even so far, but you know, we never looked really troubled.
No.
For me, and I think we deserved the 3 points, to be honest. Few changes in the lineup today though.
Yeah, no, I agree with your assessment. I don't think it was a particularly brilliant game of football, but at the end of the day, we've spoke about us playing well this season. and
Gaffer
not
always
picking up.
touches on it, and he made a big point after the Aberdeen game saying he's fed up of playing well in games and no getting a result, and he'd rather just win a game slightly.
Yeah.
I think we did that today.
Yeah, it was one of the games where, the goal wasn't pretty, but it's a headed goal and it's won the game. We can't really complain. I don't think we done an awful lot wrong. We were solid enough. As you say, a few changes to the lineup. Serrano starting, thought he was excellent, getting up and down the park. I don't think he put a foot wrong.
Both fullbacks for me were I think they were the standouts in my opinion. I think Nicky probably edged it in terms of what he contributed going forward, but Serrano was absolutely solid. First start for the club, first time he's played in this league as well, and to be honest, he didn't really look out of place at all.
Yeah.
Looked really, really composed on the ball. Some good deliveries, which kind of we picked up on last week in the Aberdeen game as well. So
it's almost like sometimes we know what we're talking about. Eh? I mean, the changes
you'd
that
think,
were made, we almost nailed them last
I'll
week.
not try and take too much.
I mean, Serrano came in. We talked about potentially him coming in to offer us more balance in the back line. Robbo went out wide. Callum mentioned about Robbo potentially going out wide.
Yeah.
We mentioned Hope potentially dropping out. because he was too similar to Pittman.
Yeah.
That's happened. Not that, I mean, again, we talk about it every week, but obviously someone's listening.
Yeah.
It's nice that we're getting something right. What about the boy up front, Lokoch? How did you think he done?
I think he showed some decent touches at times. I think he's probably going to need to get up to the pace of the game here, because I'm not going to say I'm an expert in the German lower leagues. I'm not. So I think he will need to get up to the pace of things. But he had hit the bar first half, good header. As I say, there was a couple of times kind of needless fouls he gave away up top when he's pressing. It seems like a thing with big players, You just seem to get fouls given against you for almost nothing. But he showed some touches where he was linking the game a bit, but I think he'll be a slow burner in my opinion. He'll take a bit of time to get really going.
I wouldn't lie, when I seen his name in the starting lineup, I was quite surprised. I wasn't expecting it. Obviously, we spoke a lot about Stokes last week.
Yeah.
He wasn't in the squad. I don't know if that's whether or not that's to do with international clearance still, or whether he's just not fit.
I think he was available, but
Right.
I think the way they were speaking about it, he himself has said his fitness isn't where he wants it to be, and I think what they're going to use almost is the international break to
Get him up and running,
get him up to speed.
I mean, like I say, I was surprised to see the big guy up front, but I thought he'd done okay. Nothing spectacular, but as you say, first game in a new league, held the ball up okay, had a few nice touches. I think we'll see a lot more of him once he gets sort of up and running, because he wouldn't have played many games himself coming into that. So he's done well the last 70 minutes he's done.
Yeah, I mean the setup we play, it kind of suits a number 9 type striker who can link, and they showed touches of that today. As I say, I think once he gets up to speed and gets bedded in, he could be useful for us.
The other change, Ambrose coming in for Fitzwater. I think an injury for Fitzwater ruled him out of the game.
He doesn't make you calm, Effie, but I love him.
Yeah, he makes me nervous, I'm not going to lie. I sit and watch the game whenever Effie plays, and by the way, he didn't put a foot wrong, he done everything right in the game, but every time he gets the ball, I'm just getting nervous. I don't know what it is, he just looks far too calm and composed on the ball for me.
But I find him a calming influence because he's so calm.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure with
There's
that.
a reason why folks sing about him getting the Ballon d'Or.
But defensively, the other one you could throw into the hat for sort of potential star player today would be Guthrie. I think he got the goal, never really put a foot wrong. The winning goal, obviously, and won just about everything in the air against Ross Stewart, who obviously has been getting praise from all over the place, including us last week.
Big moves as well, being linked with him now as well. Yeah, Guthrie did put a foot wrong. In fact, the whole back four, and you know who I'm really happy for is Robbie getting a clean sheet today.
Yeah.
Because again, I'll touch on it. The Twitter trolls who seem to go after him. I don't care if you listen to the podcast or not, but I think it's so uncalled for, some of the comments about Robbie, and I'm absolutely delighted that he got a clean sheet today, and we'll obviously go on to talk about it, but it's a great way to cap off his week, because getting his first international call for the first team. So
looking,
good week all round for Robbie.
Yeah, looking at the game, Scott Pittman, first opportunity of the game, it was a bit of a sitter he missed, wasn't it? 4 yards out, ballooned it over the bar. In fact, it was wide as well. I think it was a pretty horrific miss.
It was a pretty awful miss. I think, to be fair, the ball zipped across, and I think Lokoch is almost going to try and flick it just in front of him as well. I don't know if it just came at him so quick and he wasn't maybe I think he was maybe expecting Lokoch to make some sort of contact, but at the same time it's one of those ones you've really got to tuck away.
You've got to finish it, especially at this level.
First half was, I think we edged it in terms of possession of the ball and stuff like that, but I think chances wise it was pretty nip and tuck. We had that one with Pitts and Lokoch hitting the bar. They had a couple through Billy Mackay, one in particular from the corner that he's got in front of Serrano, I think's in front of McCrory, and he's flicked wide. But after that, second half, especially sending off made a difference in terms of the whole context.
You mentioned
one, but
you mentioned obviously how we've had the control of the game. You could almost argue we've been like that all season. It's almost like we've changed the style of play. We're well renowned for being this long ball team, which we all know we're not, but we still played
How many throws did you see go in the box? For example,
but we still played that kind of get the ball forward and then play football. But I've seen us playing a lot more football from the back this season. I think that goes in terms of stats as well. You know, Aberdeen last week we had over 100 more passes,
10% more possession.
Yeah, again this week I've not looked at the stats, but I would imagine we had more possession again.
Yeah.
So it's almost like that style is changing slowly but surely. On the sending off then, which you rightly said changed the game almost. Can't have any complaints. It's a clear red, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean he's made a foul early doors, and then the foul he's made is a certain yellow card. So if you're already on a booking, you can't expect.
No.
The other player I'm genuinely surprised managed to last the game was Draper.
Yeah.
Draper made 3 cynical fouls before he even got booked. He could have been booked for the 2 before. I think actually the one he got booked for was probably the harshest of these 3. But I think because he'd accumulated and he had a proper go at the line late on.
Yeah.
You know.
It's strange. It was almost like Ross County came down looking for a battle. You know, they came into the game playing some good stuff, and right from the very beginning they weren't afraid to put a boot in, leave a
but I think, see, against a team like ourselves, we are renowned for the scrappy side of the game, the ugly side of the game. I think if you bring the game like that into that sort of make that the type of game, I think they're playing into our hands, to be honest.
Absolutely,
doing that. And well, I think it did. We won the battle, didn't we?
Yeah. I think you almost see a slight. I mean, when the sending off came about and we got the goal, you could see the relief almost lift from the players' shoulders. We started passing the ball about well. We were probably unlucky not to get another one at least. In terms of getting in behind. I think we mentioned it earlier on in terms of Devlin and Serrano. I thought Devlin done excellent. Obviously, he created the Pittman chance in the first half by getting past his sort of fullback.
We talked about it in earlier episodes this season that Nicky wasn't getting forward maybe enough, and I think the last couple of games in particular, I think you've seen what I would rave about with Nicky is in terms of the kind of modern day fullback overlapping all the time and getting forward. And he was really effective today for us, getting into those positions, hitting the byline and getting in behind their back 3, and he was a massive asset to the result today.
And then obviously we got the goal 5 minutes after the sending off, as we mentioned earlier. Serrano putting a great ball into the box, Guthrie in there causing no end of troubles for defenders. Again, getting his head on the ball in the back of the net puts us 1-up.
Oh, Big John, it's what he's good at. He's a big threat in the box. Was it 6 goals last season he got? And he's just in that area. It's a good delivery by Serrano. It's one of those goals that Sportscene are going to go typical Livy, crosses into the box. But I think, as you say, it was a relief getting that goal, and I think it took a lot of pressure off the players getting in front. And
Guthrie
when we go in front in games, it suits us.
Yeah. Definitely.
So getting that goal would have given the players a lot of confidence.
And Guthrie scoring, I'm going to bring this up because you mentioned it before we started recording. I've got Guthrie in my fantasy team. You made the shocking decision of taking him out. You
say shocking, but we had conceded 9 goals in our
Ross
first
County
5
and Hamilton is the next 2 games, though. It seems like a peculiar time to make that change, Ewan.
To be fair, my back 3 have gained me a lot of points the last couple of weeks, so since John's came out. Sorry, John.
Then obviously we saw out the game with relative ease. I don't think Robbie had much to do in goals after the sort of sending off, if at all, in the game. And as I said, we probably could have had a couple more ourselves. It was good to see us seeing out the game so confidently, as we talked about.
Tiff did well when he came on as well,
absolutely.
in terms of buying fouls and keeping us up that end of the park, and he made a decent contribution for the short spell he was on.
We spoke about it over the last couple of seasons, actually throwing away leads when we're in control of games. You could see that experience today in the game with Ambrose and Holt coming on and controlling that midfield. You had Bartley in there. You could almost see that change. It was like we weren't going to lose the game today.
Well, as I say, it suits us. You know, all the games this season we've gone behind in. You know, and I always say I feel we struggle when we need to try and take the game to a team and break teams down. I was almost a bit apprehensive when they went down to 10 men because you typically go in 2 banks of 4, 1 up, right? So I was like, we're going to have to try and break them down, but I'm glad we got the goal as quickly as we did. That takes a lot of pressure off you try to go for it.
Yeah.
But it falls into what we're really good at, which is sitting in, soaking up pressure, defending stuff in front of us, and we did it really well today.
Yeah, the other thing I want to talk about is De Gea for Ross County, the manager.
Stuart De Gea.
Yeah, sent off at the end. I don't understand what he's got to complain about. Without praising the referee too much, because we don't like to do that in Scottish football, I don't think John Beaton done anything wrong in the game. What's he complaining about there?
The yellows he's given out for Tremarco are yellow cards.
Yeah. I mean, they're clear yellow cards. That's not even an argument.
Honestly, I have no idea what he's complaining about, but me and Dave Black almost at the same time on the coverage said, well, he deserves a red for the haircut alone.
You had me in fits. I literally was like, you just said it in literally 2 seconds. Dave on the commentary, he probably deserves a red card for his haircut. Absolutely tremendous. But great to get a win, and we're now off the bottom of the league as it stands. Mentioned it before, that relief is great, isn't it? Being off that bottom of the table going into the international break.
Yeah, gives us that little bit of buzz going into the Hamilton game next.
And obviously, looking at the table, we're now looking up the way, aren't we? I mean, we're only 2 points off of 4th place as it stands.
Well, exactly. We're 3 points behind County, who were sitting third.
Yeah, it's crazy how things can change. You know, we were not concerned, but a bit disappointed with how the season started. But when you look back at the fixtures, we've played 3 of the top 4 for last season. Aberdeen, Motherwell, Rangers.
And an improved Hibs team.
Yeah, and the Hibs side that has improved. We've came away with 2. We're now sitting on 5. I think you mentioned it earlier that if we do beat Hamilton, we're sitting on the same points at the same stage as last season.
Exactly, so calm down, folks, calm down. We've got the first win on the board, and I'm sure that'll take a lot of pressure off the players, and they'll be looking forward to the Hamilton game now. International football returns next week with the Nations League kicking off. Scotland face 2 games in 3 days. First up, it's a home game against Israel, followed by a trip to the Czech Republic. It's not actually in Prague. I keep talking about how I was meant to be going to Prague, but it's actually 3 hours away from Prague. But first up, Steve Clarke named his squad, and a couple of familiar names to Livy fans appeared. Current Livy number 1, Robbie McCrory, got his first call up for the national squad, along with the recently departed Lyndon Dykes. Got his first call up as well. It's a proud moment for the club, and it's a good feather in the cap, isn't it?
Oh, it's tremendous. I mean, it goes for... I know folk hate when fans say this at the club, and I'm going to say it again. It shows how far the football club has come, that we've got so many internationals in the team, and we've got players who are moving on for millions of pounds, and we're delighted to see players, you know, develop for the football club, going on to get that international recognition. Obviously Robbie is on loan for Rangers, but I don't think he would have got this call up had he not been out on loan to ourselves.
Exactly. I was coaching this morning, speaking to one of the guys I coach with who's a Rangers fan. He said the same thing. He's like, oh, Rangers were sitting taking credit going, oh, well done Robbie, but he was like, well, it's really you guys that have given him the opportunity to his call up. So I'm absolutely delighted for Robbie. I think that one is one for me. It's getting in someone that I think everyone knows will probably be a future international, and getting him kind of embedded into that setup. Don't think Robbie's going to feature.
No.
And I'm sure he'll probably be aware of that as well. But it's smart thinking by Clarke, getting someone who, as I say, everyone's kind of touting as being a future international.
Yeah, and obviously the other one's Lyndon Dykes. I've seen a few people kind of mention, would he have got that call up had he not moved to QPR? But I think, I mean, obviously...
I doubt Clark's called him up based on the friendly against Wimbledon.
Yeah, he's played all his football for Livingston, so he's obviously impressed for Livingston. Even halfway through last season, there was lots of talk about Steve Clarke trying to persuade him to get into the squad. I don't want to go as far as what Hibs do every time Lyndon gets a call up now and tweet how he was one of their own, etc, etc.
Like John McGinn. But John McGinn got called up, by the way.
But at this stage, I mean, he's literally moved
just
2 weeks ago.
Door,
so to me, it's still a proud moment for the club, and I think he will step up into that position as international football. I think we've seen him, and Gary Holt touched on it, how he's always progressed in his career from Queen of the South to Livingston. He's now progressed on to QPR.
For me, it's the attitude thing with Lyndon that makes me think that international football's not going to faze him. Like, I go back to when we spoke to him, but he came out with the line of, I like to piss people off.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't care about folks' reputations, and see at international level, I think some folk can go into that and see some of the players they might be up against and kind of get a bit nervous almost. I don't think he will.
No.
Because he'll see it as a challenge.
I hope he goes in and gets a chance. I think he will. We'll go into the sort of the way we think Scotland will line up in these games in a wee bit. I think he will get an opportunity, and I hope he does impress, because some of the reaction on Twitter, I mean, not from our fans, we obviously watch them every week, but they're already getting prejudged. It's a typical Scotland fan, what they're doing, prejudging a player before they've even seen him playing.
I find it so frustrating reading comments about Linden, folks saying, oh, you pish.
He's limited.
It's only because he had a couple of games against Celtic last year. But the thing is, I get the privilege of doing pressers after games most weeks, and every manager just about in the division comments on Dykes. Right? There's a reason for that, right? Because he's bloody good.
Yeah.
Everyone thought he's just a target man. He's not just a target man. He's quick. He's good on the ground. You know, his touch is excellent. He wins 90% everything in there, and he's an absolute workhorse. You know, folk do not give that laddie the credit he deserves, and I've said it for months now. I think he'll do a job for Scotland because I think he's the type of striker that suits. Clark plays similar to us. He plays 4-2-3-1, and we talked about it doing our own review of the Ross County game. That suits a number 9, a physical kind of number 9 that can bring other folk into the game. And Dykes does that.
He's an ideal player for Scotland, I think. Ideal striker. A lot of folk will look at Ollie McBurney and say, well, he's playing at a higher level and doing it every week, which is absolutely fair enough. But Dykes, if he's given an opportunity, I think he'll take it.
Yeah.
Just the way he plays, you kind of said it there, that he'll cause no end of problems for defenders. He won't care about players' reputations. He'll just go in and do his best and give 100%. Great move, and it's a really proud moment for the football club for sure. On to the game, obviously, Israel. I think the last time we spoke about international football, I brought this up. I don't understand the Nations League in terms of Israel being in our group again. They were in our group last time. We won the group. They finished bottom, but we're in the same group again in a higher division.
They rejigged it ever slightly, I think.
It's just they rejigged it because who was it? Somewhere like Germany or that were going to get drop out of the top leagues or something. And you wonder why there's so many people hating FIFA and all of that for this sort of thing.
I can't remember quite what the rejig was, but it meant that I think we've still moved up a bracket, or a league.
Yeah, well, we moved from C to B. We're in B this season.
But I don't know how Israel have somehow wangled their way into the same group again.
Drives me crazy.
It's becoming almost an international derby, isn't it? Us and Israel all of a sudden, we'd never played each other before the last Nations League campaign, and now we've got 3 games in 3 months.
Thankfully, we've got a fairly good record against them. Certainly at home, anyway.
Well,
so
we've lost the one time we went to Israel. So.
But it's a game we've got to be looking at winning, isn't it? I mean, Israel at home.
I think, we've got to be looking at winning that. Obviously, it's a wee while since we last played them. What was it, 2018? In the Nations League, we beat them. Forrest scored the hat-trick. But the team's changed a lot, in my opinion, since then. You know, new managers in for a start. It was Alec McLeish that was in charge at the time. Less I say about Alec McLeish, the better. But I think Clark will be frustrated that these games are only coming about now. Should have had games in March. Should have been the actual playoff games with Israel. So he's had almost a 10-month layoff from international games, which will be a bit frustrating for him that he's not been able to get his squad together. But I mean, his squad, they're starting to take there's a trend almost in his squad and his selection, a consistency developing from the last couple. And I think that's him starting to find out what his kind of best selection might be.
Yeah, you obviously you mentioned the squad there. Is there any players you're surprised at seeing in there, and is there any that you thought might have been in with a shout of getting called in that aren't there?
One that frustrates me, because it's not a dig at him as a professional or anything like that. I just genuinely don't think he's quite good enough for this level. Is O'Donnell at right back. I know we've got slight issues at right back, but I don't think he's the answer. personally. The person who's in possession of that jersey just now is Palmer, who I think the last couple of games
He's impressed, hasn't he?
over in Cyprus in the Kazakhstan home game, came into his own in that position. It's good to see Kieran Tierney back in the squad. Obviously he's playing really well down south at Arsenal. Possibility that he could play right back, because we've got 3 left backs in the squad. I know a few folk have commented on, but maybe he's looking at Tierney playing there.
Well, what about, I mean, there was a lot of talk about change, and I know Clark likes to play the 4-2-3-1, but there's personnel there to suit a 3 at the back. Tierney's played for Arsenal as a left-sided centre back.
Yeah,
is that an option?
That's the other one. We tried 3 at the back with Tierney at left centre back under McLeish, and he scored an OG over in Israel. He had an absolute, in fact the entire team had a shocker, to be fair. I think 3 at the back's one of these things that need really drilled.
It does, yeah.
And I think to go and start this Nations League campaign when you've got probably the most important game we've had in years next month against Israel, I think I don't think there's any point. I think he needs to develop a consistency with the team and his selection. I think before the last internationals in November, I think you were starting to get a picture of what he thought was his best team. To be honest, it wouldn't have been far off what I would have picked.
Yeah. I think, like you say, I'll look back at the Hopkin era for Livingston, and you mentioned it takes time to drill a back 3 into them. We were very fortunate at Livingston that we had that opportunity to do that. You know, we dropped down the league, we went into a back 3, and we got that opportunity.
We kind of tinkered with it throughout that League One season, and then when we won the league, we had, 4 or 5 games before the end of the season, and we played a back 3 for all of that. So we had an opportunity to build that, but with international football, it's so difficult to start building a system.
The other one that I don't quite get that's been called up is Lawrence Shankland. I mean, I get that he's been involved in the squads the last couple of games, but he's not featured at all this season. He's been out injured, and now he has officially pulled out, I believe, of the squad. I saw that as a wasted call up. I mean, there must have been someone else out there that we could have given an opportunity to. Shanklin has been out all season.
I mean, even
why
one,
call him in?
Just on the off chip, Nisbet. He's had a decent start to the season with Hibs, and he's fit and he's been playing. I agree with you, the Shanklin one, I thought he was already injured, so for me it was just almost a wasted call up. I mean, maybe pulling someone in like Nisbet who's fresh, who's on form, might have been a shout just to see what he's like in and about the squad more.
The other one I kind of put down as an outside the box choice was the lad Michael Rose at Coventry. Moved for Ayr, right back. He's performed excellently well for Coventry, got them promoted obviously into the Championship. Now, be interesting to see if he continues to progress in the Championship, because Coventry fans have been raving about him down south. Right back is obviously what we just talked about, is a position of concern. I know Palmer's come in and done well, but Rose could come in there potentially as an outside the box opportunity to bring him in if he performs well for Coventry. He was one. The other ones I kind of jotted down. Chris Burke. I know he's getting on a bit, but he's performed well, and I always talk about giving people opportunities that are performing well in their current league. Chris Burke started the season well.
I think Kenny Dalglish actually mentioned Chris Burke is getting a call up, but for me it's one of those ones that, do you see you building a team?
Oh yeah, totally.
With Chris Burke,
absolutely.
Is he going to start the games? No. So for me, he has been in very good form. I'm not taking that away from him, but I think his international career's beyond him now.
And then you look at the English players. Obviously, the English game's not been going for a few weeks now, so you've got a few English-based players. Was it almost worth a while looking at SPFL players and players that are now playing? Players that are playing it every week just now, getting them into the squad that are up and running in their domestic leagues. It's always difficult because we've got so much quality down south. But was that an option worth considering?
Me, no. I think with the games that are coming, I think he needs to get his settled the team going into those games in October, especially the Israel game, the playoff semi-final. He needs to have a team that he knows he's going to put out in the park. For me, it would just be a no-go to start experimenting with his squad. As I say, you could see it, the Cyprus game, I think he's probably disappointed he can't rely on Naismith just now. Obviously, with Hearts not kicking off their season until next month, till October. So he probably would have called him in, because I think he made a difference in those games. And I think he would have been involved again, purely for the experience side of things. But, you know, he picked the same team pretty much for those 2 games, and I think he was starting to be really settled in what he was looking at.
The 2 other sort of glaring ones that I think we've missed out, and I get why one of them's not in the team. Ryan Fraser, he's not played any football for 4 or 5 months, so I get why he's not in there, but he'll be a big miss.
He also doesn't have a club.
Yeah, he'll be a big miss though. He's a very important player. He obviously featured a lot in Steve Clarke's early games. Another one, Tom Kearney, I think he's performed pretty well for Fulham, was playing week in, week out. I think he's a bit unfortunate to miss out.
Yeah, I think Kearney's one that really frustrates me, because he's been called up multiple times, but he pulls out the squad all the time. You almost sit and go, is his heart really... Because he's an English lad.
Yeah.
You sit and go, is his heart really in it? You know, because, you know, he gets a minor niggle and he's out. You know, it just gives me the impression that he's not totally, you know, on board with the whole Scotland international type thing.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think if you were looking at it on form, he would probably be one that should be considered, but I think it's because, you know, he's got a reputation almost now.
Yeah.
We're pulling out squads, and that, as I say, Clarke needs to pick guys that he knows he can rely on, that want to be there. You know, you had John McGinn when he had his leg break. He was talking about, I'll be on crutches in that squad. To play that game against Israel. That's the sort of commitment you want from your players.
Absolutely, yeah. So looking at the squad then, and looking at the Israel game first up, how do we line up in that one? Who's the number 1? I think Clarke's been open and said Marshall.
Yeah.
Again,
it's the experience side of things, isn't it?
Again, we go back to the fact that he's not been playing though. McLaughlin's been playing.
Yeah.
So would there be an option to bring McLaughlin in? Marshall will probably play, but if you were in charge, looking at the 2, one's not playing at all just now, one's playing every week. Do you play the one that's playing every week, or do you stick to your trusted number 1?
I'm becoming really repetitive, but when you've not got as many games, and these games are almost, for me, are rehearsals for the really big one next month, and I think he almost needs to pick what he has in mind as being his team going forward. He sees Marshall. It was Clarke's first game against Cyprus. He instantly put Marshall between the sticks, because the way he put it was, it gives me it was him and Mulgrew he put in. It gives me 50 extra caps in the team. Straight away he was looking at it from, gives me a little bit more experience in that team, because it is a very young squad, to be fair, across the board, or, you know, inexperienced. So for me it's Marshall between the sticks. The back 4, for me, Palmer's in possession in the jersey. Whether he experiments with Tierney at right back. Tierney has played right back for us before and hasn't really let us down. It just doesn't quite give you that natural overlap, so that's one I think's contentious. I think he'll probably go with McKenna and Gallagher at centre half, because
seems to be the pairing.
They've done well in the last 2 games, and well, Robertson's the obvious one at left back, isn't he? He's captain. We talk about playing 4-2-3-1. I think he'll give the opportunity for McTominay and McGregor. That would be my pick out of the guys there. And then in front of them, Christie was coming in off the right hand side, and then he had McGinn playing as the 10 and Forrest out on the left. I don't see much change from that. And then I think, again, based on caps, it will probably be McBurney that will get the nod.
So the one that I'm a wee bit surprised about, and I get why, because we're talking about players that have played for Clarke so far. Christie, don't think he's quite performed this season yet. Armstrong was playing very well for Southampton, a vital part of their team. Would that be an option to swap those 2? That's what I'd be looking at. I like the way you've set up that team, but that's probably the only change I would probably make.
It's an option, you know, as you say. Armstrong was in really good form after lockdown when he came back in for Southampton. It is a possibility. I just think Clarke almost likes guys coming in off the line. You know, he had Forrest playing left hand side and Christie naturally coming inside, and it allows the likes of Robertson and Palmer to get down the outside. Maybe don't get quite the same with Armstrong playing out on the right hand side, for example.
I tried to look at the Israel squad on Twitter and things, but they've posted an image of their squad in Hebrew or something, so I've
Can't believe the lack of commitment you've shown not to learn Hebrew.
so I've not really looked at the Israel team, but they are, I think at the moment, 93rd in the world rankings. I hate looking at world rankings because I think it's totally
It can
flawed.
be quite false.
Scotland 50th in the rankings. On world rankings alone, we should be winning the game. On form at home against them, we should be winning. What's your prediction for the game?
For me, I do think we'll win. I think we'll have too much quality, especially with the game being at Hampden. I'm going to go for 2-0 Scotland.
2-0 is exactly what I was going for as well. For the same reason, too much experience in the squad, good record against them, 2-0 as well. Looking at the next game then, Czech Republic, I think is it Monday night?
Yeah, Monday night.
Monday night, Czech Republic, that looks a much tougher game than this one.
Well, that's one Clark can almost do a bit of homework, preempting if we were to be successful in the playoffs, because they would be in our group at the Euros. So it's one he can almost have a little spy mission right there and then, and kind of see where we could hit them.
Yeah.
Obviously looking very, very far in advance and being very hopeful with that. Don't
Which
get
is
me wrong.
not very Scotland fan.
I'm not going to lie. I have looked at the Euro fixtures to see if they clash with anything that I've got booked for next year, but
You're mental.
you've got to be prepared for these things, Andrew.
You're off your head.
But yeah, it's an opportunity to play a decent quality side who have already qualified for the Euros, so the Nations League's not going to be a massive priority for them.
Interesting squad they've called up. They've got about 1,400 midfielders and one striker in their squad. So you would expect that. You would expect that one striker to play. I think he was on loan to Red Bull Leipzig last season from Roma.
Right.
Decent record. I think 22 caps for Czech Republic, 9-10 goals, I think.
Right.
So he'll be a danger. I think he's quite a tall, physical player, so it'll be up to
You
our
can tell we've
defenders.
done a lot of research on the opposition for these games.
Well, I have, you've not. But you know, it's like I always get a bit concerned about McKenna and coming up against someone physical like that. I think he's got a mistake in him.
I'm not a fan of McKenna. I won't hide that. But I think he is currently in possession of the jersey. I keep talking about that international football. I think that's a big thing. And him and Gallagher were relatively solid. Decky, in my opinion, was the more solid of the two, and he was making his debut. But I think that will be them two at centre half, and you need to get partnerships kind of embedded at international level, because you don't get the same time with players, and I think he's had them play together. So, but I agree with you, McKenna worries me. I think he just comes across really cumbersome, and I hate using the term big hoodie.
But you just have. So it's now on the podcast.
But he does just really strike me as that kind of centre half. I still think Aberdeen were mad to knock back £6 million for him a couple of seasons back. I think McInnes is, if he's not thinking he's worth 10.
Leading into the
I wasn't wanting to lay into McKenna, but you gave me the opportunity, you set me up, you teed me up, you gave me the platform to perform, and I went and done it.
You should be proud of yourself. Yeah. Talk about throwing. I hope he performs tremendously well, and we can.
As do I. I fully want the guy to play well. He's in a Scotland jersey. I'm not one of these old firm fans that wants Rangers and Celtic players to booze them when you go to Hampden. You know, for me, they're all on the same side at that point.
So a different kettle of fish against Czech Republic. Obviously, away from home. Do we approach the game differently in terms of formations? Do we go more defensively? Do we go the famous 3-6-0 or 4-6-0?
God, don't remind me of that. I think Clark naturally will probably be a bit more cautious and maybe try and play on the break a little bit more, because it's a better quality opposition and it's away from home. And you know, for example, the Russia game, yes, we lost the game 4-0, but first half we were really compact and we really restricted Russia that first half. I think the game turned obviously when they scored second half, and I think heads just completely dropped. There was a team very low in confidence at that point, but you could see aspects of that. I was over in Belgium, his first away game. Again, it was being really compact, really tight, and as the game wore on, I think he came out after the game and I was saying whilst watching, I was like, he's trying to get within a goal or two, kind of going into the last 20 minutes to have a bit more of a go after that, and we did. We were unlucky not to score that game. So I think there's been very early signs with Clark that he suits international management because of the way he sets his teams up.
Yeah.
And I think he suits being Scotland manager because of the way he sets his teams up. I think he knows the limits,
Yeah.
you know, with the team. But those couple of away games I've been able to go to, I've seen early signs of how he wants to set the team up to play in those games. And
That almost sounded positive as a Scotland fan.
I'm genuinely encouraged, right, by some of the things I've seen with Clark. I think he's a guy that I think just suits international management. I genuinely do. He's very good tactically, and he's very good at setting teams up.
Is this maybe a game, you know, we're talking about sort of leading up to the big game, the playoff game. Is this an opportunity to do something differently up front then? For one game play one striker, and for the other game play another striker? I mean, without trying to push Lyndon Dykes, because obviously we have tinted glasses on, but is it an opportunity to play Lyndon Dykes in one game and Ollie McBurnie in another game?
I think he probably will. I think the striker, for me, the positions that are really up for grabs with Scotland are the centre halves, the right back, and the number 9. I think those positions are the ones that are kind of a grey area just now.
Yeah.
And I think, for me, we'll give Lyndon a go. I think he'll give him a prolonged stretch in one of the games, at least 45 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
Because, for me, McBurnie, as I keep going on, he's not grabbed that jersey yet. For me, after the last 2 games, it was Naismith.
Yeah.
That was Naismith's jersey, but he's obviously missing out, so it's up for grabs again. And I think if Lyndon gets the opportunity, I agree with you, I think he'll embrace it and he'll take it with both hands.
So, before the Czech Republic game, we've both predicted wins going into the Israel game. It's always difficult to predict. We hate doing predictions when there's still a game to be played, but we're going to try anyway. Czech Republic, prediction for that one?
I think we'll put in a dogged performance and get a draw.
A draw.
You're
far more optimistic than me as a Scotland fan. Having watched us fail time after time after time. Not as much as you. I mean, I feel sorry for you travelling the world seeing us fail.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite happy.
What do you mean fail? I watched us win in San Marino.
I think we've still got a long way to go. I'm with you. I'm optimistic. I think with the squad that we've assembled, we've got good players there. But I think it might just be a step too far, this one. I'm going to say a 1-0 defeat. I think we'll be dogged and in the game, but I think they might just pick us off.
I've gone 0-0. I'm going for 0-0.
Right. I mean, I see we're not far apart then.
No.
We're not far apart. I just think defensively we're still looking a bit flawed. But fingers crossed, we do get a positive result. Big international games ahead. Hopefully we'll all get behind Steve Clarke and the Scotland team, and we'll get some good results to take us into the Hamilton game for Livingston, because it'll be a good positive way to go into that one.
Exactly.
That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livy. Just a quick one this week to keep us ticking over heading into the international break. We're hopeful to have some exclusive interview content during the international break, so keep your eyes peeled for that on our social media channels.
Speaking of our social media channels, you can find Talk Livy on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram by simply searching Talk Livy. You'll find all the links to this episode and all our previous episodes over there.
You can also find our episodes on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube. Search for Talk Livy and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivypodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
So that's it from the original 2 that could be bothered to turn up. And as we said, keep an eye on our social media channels for some exclusive content during the international break, but hopefully enjoy your week.
West Lothian, West Lothian.
Livingston